Weighted walking is awesome. Rucking, as it's usually called, has to be one of the few forms of exercise that appeals to pretty much everyone. There's something very exciting about the simplicity of it. Everyone knows how to walk, or most everyone at least. There's no need for specialized coaching or really any time at all spent learning something new. Just add weight to your body and go. Serious lifters benefit greatly from the added strength gains that come with very little fatigue attached. The added core strength alone is enough to improve your heavy compounds. Cool prepper hobbyist types like the survival implications. It's very possible that rucking is the ultimate functional exercise for preparing yourself for any kind of post-apocalyptic survival setting. It's one thing to have the speed needed to run away quickly from whatever strange thing is after you, but if you have to leave your stuff behind every time that happens because you're too weak to run while carrying it, you're in for a very tough existence. Rucking is a way to build that strength now, before the zombie apocalypse, like a kind of physical prepping. Lazy people like rucking because it doesn't take much effort to get a good training stimulus. Not to say it's easy by any means, but walking with a 30-pound pack on your back isn't anywhere near the intensity level typically required to make gains in the gym. I like rucking for its association with exploration. If I'm gonna go wander somewhere new, I figure why not get some added benefits while I do it. Rucking is like a kind of strength training travel. It's like the closest thing you can get to a real-life, actually effective version of those vibration things you're supposed to put on your stomach to get a six-pack. Just turn it on and forget about it. Or in this case, put on the pack and forget about it and start exploring. Yes, traditional rucking or walking with a weighted pack on your back is awesome, but why not take it up a notch? For us, slightly crazy gym people, there has to be a way to level it up, or at the very least, to use it as a starting place from which we can create something truly terrible. I found a way to do just that. The last few times I made it out onto a trail, I've been doing what might be called found object rucking. It started maybe a year ago during a trip up to the mountains. I wasn't able to find any heavy stones to lift, but I still wanted to get some training in. What I did find was a small, perfectly shaped carry stone. I figured if I couldn't lift heavy, I might as well go for distance. So I took that small, roughly 100-pound stone for a couple-mile hike up and down the nearby trails and instantly fell in love with the whole idea. Not only was it a lot of fun, but I got the best kind of muscle soreness, those DOMs that make you realize you have muscles you didn't know were there. Admittedly, after that first found object rucking session, I went many months without doing it again. It kind of slipped my mind, but on my last trip up to the mountains, I had the chance to spend multiple days on some trails carrying around whatever semi-heavy thing was nearby, and I'm now 100% convinced this is something I need to do more often. This found object rucking is like a hybrid between traditional rucking with a pack and weighted carries like you might do in the gym. The main difference between this training style and traditional rucking is that it falls on you to keep hold of the object because it's not strapped to your back, which forces you to stay more mentally engaged. Before going over what I think is the best way to do this found object rucking, let's discuss the benefits you get from it. It's often difficult to make the connection between carries and muscle when you come from a muscle-focused gym background where every exercise is associated with one isolated part of the body, but it's widely accepted that carrying heavy weight adds muscle to your frame. If you ask the question, what muscle does this work? I guess my answer would be yes, all of it, all of the muscle. It's tough to pin down exactly where or what parts of you grow from carrying heavy things because there's more going on than just direct muscle stimulation. Yes, carries work your traps and back and arms and grip and every part of your core and your glutes and hamstrings and calves, some of those things more than others, but the muscle growth doesn't stop there. I'm not actually sure if this is still considered bro science or not. If it is, I doubt it will be for much longer, but carrying heavy weight changes you. You hear about this stuff all the time. The gym bro who, for whatever reason, can't get his arms to grow, starts doing heavy carries, and suddenly his curls are more effective. It's as if suddenly all isolation exercise just works better for him. And that's just part of it. The other thing you gain from heavy carries is a kind of elite total body stability. Becoming more stable means more weight added to your heavy compounds, which again means more muscle. That 135-pound overhead press plateau gets shattered because it wasn't a lack of shoulder strength holding you back, but your ability to maintain the brace needed to give yourself a solid foundation to press from. You become better able to maintain an upright torso angle when doing squats, and you have less trouble with excessive rounding on your deadlifts. Heavy carries fix you. I don't know how else to say it. Moving on from there, you'll notice I kept saying heavy carries. That was on purpose. It's typically heavy carries that cause these things, but that doesn't mean lightweight carries can't get you at least part of the way there. Carrying a 75-pound rock for a mile isn't nearly the same thing as carrying a 200-pound rock to failure. I won't pretend it is for the sake of making this video more exciting, but if the found object rucking can get you even some of those benefits I mentioned before, that's huge. Remember that this is very cheap volume, and it's not going to take much, if anything, away from your regular training, so any improvement is a big deal. And when done in the way I'll go over soon, this found object rucking actually lets you pick and choose which parts of your body get worked most, which can be a very hard thing to do with heavy weights. One last thought on why this works. We can also look to traditional bodybuilding logic as a sort of guide. It's been proven that it doesn't matter what rep range you train in when building muscle is your goal. What matters is your proximity to failure. Getting close to failure with 50 reps builds the same amount of muscle as reaching that point with 10 reps. It only makes sense that the same must be true for lightweight long distance carries versus quick heavy carries as well. During my last trip, I worked with a small stone and a log, but anything will do. I only used these things because I think they're cool, and they happen to be lying around, but the true beauty of this whole thing is there aren't any limitations. Unlike traditional rucking, you don't need to go buy some fancy pack, just grab something and go outside. Natural objects add to it for a reason I can't fully explain, but anything from your house can work too. Water jugs, a cinder block or two, a trash bag filled with dirt, anything. Even just mindlessly carrying whatever it is you found is enough to make simple walking more effective, but here are a few ideas you can use if you want. With found object rucking, you can tailor the carry to suit different goals. For example, during my last trip, I found that if I carried that small stone in a perfect elbows-high Zercher position, my upper back was completely fried in 20 minutes. Walking with the weight resting on my shoulder pushed my core to its limit. Holding the stone in a low bear hug position made my biceps feel like they just completed a full workout in the gym and then some, and holding the stone down near waist level was a grip challenge fit for an arm wrestler. Doing any one of these things is worthwhile, but the true test is in combining everything together. If your goal is max distance, you'll have no choice but to do this anyway. You'll need to use every carry position available if you want to make it further than a couple hundred feet. There's no way I could maintain that perfect Zercher position for a full mile, for example. I found that my favorite rotation was starting with the high Zercher position, then moving to a bear hug, then on each shoulder, at arm's length at waist level, then starting over again. Whenever one position got to be too much, I'd switch to something else. This found object rucking is easier than doing heavy carries or pushing failure in the gym, but that doesn't mean it's not still difficult in its own way. A half mile in and every step becomes a challenge. A full mile and your mind keeps repeating the thought, that was probably far enough, right? A mile and a half and every inch of you is on fire. Push through that though, and something strange happens. You hit that 2-mile mark, and it's like suddenly every part of your body synchronizes into one solid, well-oiled machine. Your mind turns off and you just keep pushing forward, shifting that weight from one place to another automatically. The body intuitively knows when it's time to carry the weight in a certain position again, when the muscles associated have recovered just enough. It's a very cool mental state to be in. On its own, found object rucking won't make you the biggest or strongest person, but when combined with other strength training exercise, it gives you a new layer of complexity. It fills in the gaps. Your physique becomes more well-rounded, your strength becomes more rugged. Every time you master a new carry type, it builds on everything else, and the cycle continues. Give it a try, and you'll be glad you did. One final thing before ending this video. I know a few people have already or are planning on typing something like, why would you do this? Why not go get a job and get paid to do this stuff? You're wasting your time. Shake my head or something like that. I'm not saying that's not an option. There are jobs out there where you need to work very hard on a daily basis, and with some of them, I'm sure you could get an even better training effect than you might get with found object rucking. But this is completely missing the point. I've said this before, I know I'll have to say it again, but there is absolutely no difference between training with natural objects and training in the gym. In either case, your goal is using those objects to become bigger and stronger, to overload your system with progressively more work over time in order to cause change. Saying someone should just go get a job carrying logs because logs look like something that would be carried at a job is no different from saying anyone who trains at a gym should just go get a job doing manual labor too. It's a pointless argument. If you want to make labor your career, then please do, but no one should feel guilty for exercising in a way they enjoy just because it possibly mimics a job and they're not getting paid for it. After all, manual labor strength or farm strength or whatever you want to call it is badass. We look up to those guys who have it. What's wrong with trying to get some of that strength for ourselves? There's more to life than money.